Cowboy Jim, Fort Mac. She's 21 minutes after 7. And I got up this morning at 5 o'clock to start acclimating my body to um, getting up in order to start back to work, which I start back to work on Wednesday. Uh, and I work 7 days, and then I work 7 nights, and then I have 7 days off, and I revel in work. My dad taught me how to work, and and we worked. And when I would get home from school, the first thing you did um, was you went, and I went and I found where my dad was working in our campground, and whatever he was doing, uh, I joined in. And not because I wanted to, but because that was accepted behavior, and you chose to behave well and work hard, and the repercussions of not doing that were what we would call old school. We'll not go there to even talk about it. And but I have spent a lifetime when I was young, and people say that's kind of a weird thing to say. No, from the time I was 5 years old, that's when I took a small hatchet. My dad was knocking trees down and trimming branches, and I chose to help him. It wasn't my choice, and he handed me a hatchet, and he said, "Knock the branches off the tree." Well, I did, and somehow I thought it was convenient that I should put my left foot up on the tree, kind of stabilize it as I knocked the branches off, and blessed little hatchet was so sharp that when it entered my boot uh, next to my big toe, it cut my big toe from just under the front tip of it all the way back to the big knuckle that held the toe in place. And there was a lot of red color flowing all over. And I actually remember my dad picking me up. I was 5. I don't really think I would recommend giving a 5-year old a hatchet that was that sharp, but nonetheless. And he carried me up to the front to where my mom was cutting hair in her hairdressing shop, and took my boot off, and he took my sock off, which now had quite a about a 2-inch hole cut in it. And he said, "Well, we can take you to the doctor's to have stitches." And I thought, that doesn't sound good. I said, "How do they do stitches?" He says, "With a needle." And I thought, that doesn't sound good. And he said, "Or I can just take some Watkins salve, put on your toe, and it'll heal eventually." And I said, "That sounds better." And thus he did that. And I have been I was a bit hard on my dad when I grew up. As I grew up, I was real hard on my dad. And at 73, I made a decision not long ago that I would occasion to remember not selectively remember, but rather try to remember uh, all inclusively what it was to have a dad like I had. He was the most popular man in the neighborhood. He was the friendliest in the neighborhood and the kindest in the neighborhood. And he always helped everyone. And I always thought as a kid, if you were half as kind to me, we'd maybe get along. But I was hard on him. And I suppose most children are hard on the parent that they cannot please. No matter what you do, what I did, I never heard any acceptation from him. And I held that against him for years and years. As I said, I'm now 73, and I am making choices to remember the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the good is best exemplified in that he had a woodworking shop above the horse barn. I remember the stairway going up to it and the feeling that I had when I took a piece of wood and I could mold that as a 9, 10, 12-year old kid. And I did. I, as the Creator God has given me the gift of running equipment. When I was younger, God, gave me the gift of being able to do everything that I tried to do with ease, easily. And that truly irritated my dad beyond measure. But in my attempt at honesty, there's a reason I'm doing this. I am not uh, normal. Uh, I mean, well, I'm not, but I reflect well what a normal person may have grown up with or like, and perhaps something that I may say may help you look upon the parent. Well, it can be a mom, can be a dad whom you could not please. My mom, I she was like the creator. I never had to do anything to please her. She just loved me. And in all that I tried to do with my dad, I never could please him, no matter what it was. But I now look back and I see both sides of the coin. That was my dad. And he raised me as he had been raised. We speak of our generation as being the enlightened ones. Well, we're not that enlightened. And the younger generation, they're not that enlightened. They have just been subjected to methodology of learning that is quick and easy. But we learned not quick and easy. We may have learned quickly because we were taught to think things through, to solve problems in school. Mathematics was a collaboration of the understanding of 2 plus 2 equaled 4, not X, Y, and Z. But we reveled in Well, I reveled in mathematics. It was and has become known as the purest science known to mankind because 2 plus 2 always equals 4. Nowadays, people don't need to learn how to write. I mean, they print. Dear Lord, I can't print. I write. And people say, "What's that?" I had one super, he said, "Can you not print?" I said, "No, I can't. I, I write. I learned to write. How can I print like I'm still in grade 2 or grade 1? Dear Lord." To me, it was not the brightest thing to do to learn to print so that you couldn't do anything other than. My dad let me, as a kid, do anything that I wanted. He required that I work. And he never once told me, work harder, because I never once did not work as hard as I could. Yes, I always tried to earn his acceptation, and never, by his word, did I ever do that, except I would hear him tell the neighbors, and he actually was proud of me, but he wouldn't tell me. And I think of our generation, and there are a few of us left at my age, and I have a dear friend south end of Calgary, and he said, "I don't know how Jim works like how he does." His wife, I spoke to her the other day. She said, "Well, he's not as young as we are." And I thought, I'm 73. I'm still working as hard as I ever did. Don't want to change. But then I thought, they're about 78 or 9 or, and so, hey, I'm not as old as they are. They're not as young as I am, but I learned to love my dad. It was a challenge, and it's important for you to understand that you can learn to love that parent who you have never loved, whom you have always wanted to be accepted by that parent, and you feel that you never have. And I learned that I had to quit that, stop that nonsense, because I was never going to receive acceptation from my dad. He, I remember well, he said, "I notice you never let wisdom and common sense interfere with what you want to do." And I thought, yeah, that's another non compliment. But it was also true. I never let wisdom and common sense interfere with what I wanted to do. I did what I wanted to do, and I took the consequences. I took the broken bones for getting on horses that I should have finished training before I got on. But it was my choice, and that's how I lived. I remember my dad let me try anything. He did not ever caution me, "You don't want to do that, eh?" Because the potential for your injury is great. He didn't do that. Old school. You'll learn if you live. You'll learn. Oh, that's the way it was. And but I remember when my dad was getting into his 60s, I concluded that I was going to do something because I was in my 40s. I didn't like that man. I didn't. I don't think I'd ever liked him because I always felt rejected by him, of him. You may experience the same thing with your mom or your dad or someone else in your life. You can change that influence, their influence on you, by choosing to forgive them. I did that, and I started telling my dad, I love you, every time I talked to him. It took a while, but he said those magic words that I had craved all my life. And he started to say, I love you. And it was hard for him. He probably lived his whole life without ever once having his dad say that he loved my dad. But we need to forgive and forget and move on. God bless you. I hope this helps you a bit. God bless you. You may never hear your parent say that they love you, but you remember this. You will hear God say, I love you, because He does. And the purity of His love is amazing.